Inglés. Jack Miller stood behind the counter of Miller's Diner, his once bustling restaurant now a mere shadow of its former self. The morning sun filtered through the dusty windows, casting a warm glow on the empty booths and faded red vinyl seats that had seen better days. The aroma of stale coffee lingered in the air, mingling with the faint scent of grease, remnants of the countless breakfasts served to lively families and weary travelers alike. Jack's eyes scanned the room, where memories danced like ghosts in the corners. He could almost hear the laughter of children, the clattering of plates, and the hum of conversation that used to fill the diner. But now, silence reigned. The only sound was the ticking of the clock on the wall, each tick a reminder of the bills piling up on the counter, overdue rent, suppliers demanding payment, and the looming threat of bankruptcy. Jack's shoulders slumped as he picked up a stack of invoices, flipping through them with a sense of dread. It felt as if the walls were closing in on him, tightening around his chest like a vice. "How did it come to this?" he muttered under his breath, his voice barely above a whisper. His reflection in the glass of the display case showed a man worn down by stress, with graying hair and weary eyes that had once sparkled with ambition. The diner had been his dream, a place where he could share his love for cooking, and now it felt like a burden, dragging him into despair. With a heavy sigh, Jack turned his gaze out the window, watching the world go by. The streets were quiet, the town seemingly holding its breath in anticipation of something, though he couldn't quite put his finger on what. He missed the hustle and bustle, the sense of community that once thrived around his establishment. Most of his regulars had moved away, seeking better opportunities in bigger cities, and the few who remained often walked past without a glance. Just then, a gust of wind rattled the door, causing it to creak open. Jack instinctively straightened, hoping for a customer, but instead he was met with the sight of a scruffy homeless man standing on the threshold. The man's clothes were tattered and dirty, and he held a small girl. No more. Van 6 clutched tightly against him. The child's wide eyes peeked out from beneath a frayed hat, scanning the diner with a mix of curiosity and uncertainty. "Can I help you?" Jack called out, his voice tinged with caution. He had learned to be wary of strangers, especially those who seemed down on their luck. The man hesitated, glancing down at the girl before stepping inside. "We're just looking for a place to stay out of the cold," he said, his voice gravelly and worn. "I'm Tom, and this is my daughter, Lily." Jack's heart softened at the sight of the little girl. She looked up at him, her big blue eyes filled with innocence and hope. "Please, sir," she piped up, her voice small yet brave. "It's really cold outside." Jack took a moment, weighing his options. He was struggling to keep his own life afloat, yet a part of him felt a sudden pang of empathy for the duo before him. They had clearly fallen on hard times, and he remembered days when he too had faced hardships, relying on the kindness of strangers. "Come in," he said finally, gesturing toward a booth. "You can warm up for a bit." Tom nodded gratefully, leading Lily to the booth. As they settled in, Jack moved to the coffee pot, pouring a cup and bringing it over. "You guys want something to eat? It's on the house," he offered, feeling a flicker of warmth in his chest at the thought of sharing a meal. "Thank you, sir," Tom said, his voice thick with gratitude. "Just a little something for Lily would be great." "Okay, how about some pancakes?" Jack suggested, the image of fluffy stacks topped with butter and syrup bringing a smile to his face. He headed back to the kitchen, the familiar sense awakening memories of bustling mornings in the diner. As he cooked, he couldn't help but steal glances at the pair. Tom was talking softly to Lily, wrapping an arm around her shoulders, and she snuggled closer, a shy smile creeping onto her face. Jack felt a strange sense of camaraderie forming, as if they were all part of a shared struggle. When the pancakes were ready, he plated them with care and returned to their booth. "Here you go," he said, placing the dish down in front of Lily, who lit up like a Christmas tree. "Dig in." "Thank you," she exclaimed, her small hands eagerly reaching for the fork. Tom watched her with a mix of pride and sorrow, his eyes betraying the weight of their circumstances. "Are you folks from around here?" Jack asked, taking a seat across from them, curiosity getting the better of him. Tom sighed, running a hand through his unkempt hair. "Not really. We were living in a city nearby, but things got tough. I lost my job a few months back, and then he trailed off, his voice faltering as he glanced at Lily. I used to be a chef, he continued, a hint of regret lacing his words. I thought I could find work anywhere, but it hasn't been easy. We lost our home, and now He paused again, looking around the diner, his eyes scanning the empty tables. Jack felt a rush of understanding wash over him. You know, I could use some help around here, he blurted out before he could think better of it. If you're a chef, maybe you could help me get things back on track. Tom's eyes widened in surprise. Really? You'd let us stay here? Yeah, I mean, it's just me here. The diner isn't doing well, and I could use all the help I can get, Jack said, surprising even himself with the offer. I can't promise that we'll turn things around overnight, but at least you'll have a roof over your heads. Lily looked up at her father, her eyes bright with hope. Can we, Daddy? Please. Tom hesitated, glancing at Jack, searching for any sign of insincerity. But all he saw was a man desperate for help, just as he was. Okay, he said finally, his voice steady. We'll take you up on that. Jack felt a weight lift off his shoulders as he nodded. Great, I'll set up a space for you both in the back. It might be a bit cramped, but it'll be warm. As Tom and Lily shared their first meal at the diner, Jack wondered about the challenges that lay ahead. He felt a mixture of apprehension and excitement, knowing that their lives were now intertwined in ways he could not yet comprehend. The diner, once a symbol of his failures, now held the potential for something more, a chance for connection, redemption, and perhaps a new beginning. With the clink of utensils and the laughter of a child filling the once silent diner, Jack understood that he had just opened his doors to more than just a couple of guests. He had welcomed hope back into his life. Little did he know the journey ahead would be fraught with unexpected twists and revelations that would change everything. As Tom and Lily settled into their new life at Miller's Diner, the once desolate atmosphere began to shift ever so slightly. Jack watched them from behind the counter, his heart heavy with a mix of uncertainty and hope. The diner was still mostly empty, save for the remnants of his past, the faded photographs on the walls, the stained booths that had seen countless patrons. But now it felt different. The sound of laughter, even if just from a small girl playing with old toys in the corner, was a welcome change. Lily had found a collection of dusty action figures and a couple of mismatched dolls that Jack had stashed away years ago. She was sprawled out on the floor, her eyes sparkling with delight as she created elaborate scenarios for her newfound friends. And then the brave knight saved the princess from the dragon, she exclaimed, her voice filled with enthusiasm. Jack couldn't help but smile at her innocence. It was a reminder of the joy that had long been absent from the diner. Hey, Lily, Jack called gently, trying to keep his voice steady. You want to help me clean up the kitchen a bit later? I could use a little assistant. Okay, Lily replied, her face lighting up. Can I wear an apron like you? Jack chuckled softly. Of course. I think I have a small one somewhere. You'll look like a real chef. As he spoke, he felt a warmth spread in his chest. For the first time in a long while, the prospect of sharing his space with others didn't feel burdensome. It felt revitalizing. In the adjacent corner of the diner, Tom sat at one of the empty booths, his gaze distant as he contemplated the challenges ahead. The weight of his experiences hung heavily on his shoulders. He had always been a proud man, a skilled chef who had once commanded a bustling kitchen. But now, as he glanced at Jack, he wondered if he still had the spark within him to rise from the ashes of despair. Jack, Tom called, breaking the silence that had settled over them. Can I talk to you for a minute? Sure. What's on your mind? Jack replied, wiping his hands on a dish towel as he approached Tom's table. I know you're doing us a favor by letting us stay here, but I want to contribute. I can cook, you know. I used to run a kitchen before. His voice trailed off, the sorrow evident in his tone. Jack raised an eyebrow, intrigued. You used to be a chef? Tom nodded, his expression shifting from sadness to a flicker of pride. Yeah, a decent one too. I specialized in comfort food, stuff that brings people together. Why didn't you say something earlier? Jack asked, his mind racing with possibilities. We could cook together. It might even attract some customers. People love a good home-cooked meal. A spark ignited in Tom's eyes, and he leaned forward. You think so? I mean, I'd love to give it a shot, but I'll need some help too. I can't do it alone. Then let's do it together, Jack replied, his voice gaining a newfound confidence. Tomorrow, we can start prepping some dishes. I have a few old recipes my mom used to make. They always brought in the customers. Tom smiled, and for the first time since they'd met, Jack saw a glimpse of the man he once was, a man with dreams, aspirations, and a sense of purpose. Thank you, Jack. I won't let you down. As the day turned to night, the diner took on a different ambiance. Jack and Tom gathered in the kitchen, a space that had seen better days but still held the potential for something wonderful. The clatter of pots and pans echoed against the walls as they prepared for their first meal together. Okay, what's the plan? Tom asked, eyeing the ingredients they had gathered. What are we making? Jack rummaged through the cabinets and pulled out a worn cookbook that had belonged to his mother. How about her famous chicken pot pie? It's a classic, and people love it. Sounds perfect, Tom replied, his enthusiasm palpable. Let's do it. They worked side by side, chopping vegetables and mixing dough, the air filled with the comforting aroma of herbs and spices. As they cooked, they shared stories. Tom spoke of his life before the streets, the restaurant he had owned, and the family he had lost. Jack, in turn, recounted the diner's history, the laughter that once echoed within its walls, and the dreams he had for it to thrive again. I miss those days, Jack said, his voice tinged with nostalgia, when the diner was full and you couldn't hear yourself think for the noise. Tom nodded, lost in thought. We can bring that back, Jack. It just takes a little love and hard work. Their camaraderie grew, but it was short-lived, as their first attempt at the pot pie quickly spiraled into chaos. Flour dust hung in the air like a fog, and as Tom reached for a mixing bowl, he accidentally knocked over a canister, sending a cloud of white powder cascading over them. Whoa! Jack exclaimed, laughing as he wiped flour from his face. Guess we're making a mess! More like a disaster, Tom chuckled, shaking his head. I haven't seen a kitchen this messy since, well, ever. Let's just clean it up and try again, Jack suggested, amusement still dancing in his eyes. I think the pie is still salvageable. With laughter echoing through the kitchen, they began the process of cleaning up their mess. Tom grabbed a mop while Jack filled a bucket with soapy water. As they worked, they exchanged playful banter, their spirits lifting despite the chaos surrounding them. I didn't sign up for a cooking class that involves this much cleanup, Tom joked, mopping up flour from the floor. Trust me, it's part of the experience, Jack replied, grinning. Just think of it as a rite of passage. After what felt like an eternity of scrubbing and whipping, they finally managed to restore some semblance of order to the kitchen. They regroup it and decide to give the chicken pot pie another shot. Ready, round two? Jack asked, determination shining in his eyes. Ready as I'll ever be, Tom replied, rolling up his sleeves. With newfound focus, they tackled the dish again, this time with more caution. As the aroma of the pot pie began to fill the kitchen, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of something special. The laughter and camaraderie they shared rekindled a flicker of hope in his heart, a hope that had long been extinguished. As they placed the pie into the oven and waited for it to bake, Jack and Tom leaned against the counter, their bodies weary, but their spirits high. They exchanged glances, a silent understanding passing between them. Tomorrow, we'll open the diner for lunch, Jack said, his voice steady. We'll serve this to anyone who walks through that door. Tom nodded, a sense of excitement bubbling within him. And we'll make it a meal to remember. With that, they toasted with their mixing spoons, a symbol of a new beginning. The path ahead was uncertain, but together they felt ready to face whatever challenges awaited them. As laughter echoed through the diner, it was a sound that both men had missed, a sound that signified the possibility of rebirth, connection, and perhaps even redemption. As the days turned into weeks, the atmosphere in Miller's diner changed gradually. The initial chaos of their first cooking attempts had transformed into a rhythm of creativity and collaboration. Jack Miller stood behind the counter with a newfound sense of optimism as he watched customers trickle in, drawn by the word-of-mouth buzz surrounding the unique dishes crafted by him and Tom. The diner, once a ghost of its former self, now hummed with life, laughter, and the sizzling sounds of cooking. Jack wiped his hands on his apron, a smile breaking across his face as he greeted a couple who had just taken a seat. "Welcome to Miller's Diner. What can I get you today?" he asked, his voice filled with warmth. The woman looked up, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "We heard about your special dish. Something with a twist, right?" "That's right. Tom's been whipping up some magic in the kitchen." "I think you'll love it," Jack replied, nodding toward the kitchen where Tom was busy at work, chopping vegetables with precision. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Tom was in his element. The scent of garlic and herbs filled the air, intertwining with the sounds of sizzling pans. "Lily, can you hand me that spice jar?" he called out, his hands never pausing in their dance of preparation. Lily, perched on a stool, jumped up eagerly. "Which one, Daddy? The one with the red label?" Tom laughed, a sound that filled the small space with warmth. "Yes, that one. You're getting better at this every day." As she handed over the jar, she beamed with pride. The little girl found joy in these moments, watching her father work, feeling needed, and contributing to their survival. It was a far cry from the uncertainty they had faced on the streets, and the diner felt like a safe haven for both her and Tom. The evening crowd grew busier, and Jack moved between tables, taking orders and serving food with a practiced ease. He caught a glimpse of Tom through the kitchen window, his brow furrowed in concentration. Jack felt a swell of gratitude. Despite their rocky start, Tom had become an indispensable part of the revival. Together, they were creating something special, a fusion of their pasts and hopes for the future. After the dinner rush, Jack and Tom collapsed into chairs at one of the tables, fatigue etching lines on their faces. "I can't believe how many people came in tonight," Jack said, shaking his head in disbelief. "It's like they can smell the good food from a mile away." Tom chuckled, wiping sweat from his brow. "It's all about that secret ingredient," he replied, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "And I think we both know what that is." "Friendship?" Jack guessed, a grin spreading across his face. "Exactly," Tom replied, raising an imaginary glass. "To friendship and second chances." Lily, who had been quietly drawing on a piece of paper at the end of the table, looked up with wide eyes. "Can I have a second chance at dessert? I want to try the chocolate cake." Jack laughed, reaching over to ruffle her hair. "Absolutely, kiddo. You've earned it. I'll whip one up right now." Just then, as Jack stood to head back into the kitchen, Lily's small voice piped up. "Daddy, can I help make it?" Tom's expression shifted, a flicker of concern crossing his face. "Are you sure, Lily? It might get a little messy." "Please, Daddy, I want to help," she insisted, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. "Okay, but let's make sure to keep it fun. No rushing, all right?" Tom relented, a soft smile forming as he watched her excitement. Jack returned moments later with the ingredients for the cake, placing them on the counter. "All right, what do we need first?" Lily jumped up and down, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "We need sugar, and then the eggs." As they began to measure and mix, the kitchen filled with laughter and the occasional flour explosion. Jack couldn't help but marvel at the simple joy of the moment. It was a far cry from the loneliness he had felt only weeks before. Suddenly, as they were pouring the batter into pans, a loud clatter came from the back of the kitchen. Startled, they all turned to see a door they had never noticed before, swinging open slightly, revealing a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. "What was that?" Tom asked, his brow furrowing with curiosity. Lily, ever the adventurous spirit, walked over and tugged on Tom's sleeve. "Let's see what's down there, Daddy." Jack hesitated, glancing at Tom, who wore a look of concern. "I don't know, guys. It might be dangerous," he cautioned, his protective instincts kicking in. "But what if there's treasure?" Lily exclaimed, her imagination running wild. "Like pirates had." Tom couldn't suppress a smile at her enthusiasm. "All right, let's just take a quick peek. But we stick together, okay?" With a nod from Jack, they approached the door, the air growing cooler as they neared the staircase. Tom led the way, gripping the railing firmly as they descended the creaky wooden steps. The dim light from the kitchen faded, and they found themselves in a small basement filled with dust-covered boxes, old chairs, and a musty smell that hinted at years of neglect. "Wow," Jack breathed, glancing around. "I had no idea this was here." Lily gasped as she spotted a stack of old photographs pinned to a corkboard. "Look, it's you, Jack!" she exclaimed, pointing at a faded picture of a much younger Jack standing beside his father, both grinning broadly in front of the diner. Tom stepped closer, brushing the dust off a nearby box. "What else do you think is down here?" he wondered aloud, curiosity evident in his voice. Jack moved further into the room, his heart racing as he explored the remnants of the past. He picked up an old menu, its edges frayed but filled with memories of a time when the diner was the heart of the town. "These are from when my dad ran the place," Jack said, his voice barely above a whisper. Lily wandered over to another box, her small fingers brushing against the lid. "What about this one?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with excitement. She opened it to reveal an assortment of utensils, some tarnished but still gleaming in the low light. Tom knelt beside her, lifting out a silver ladle. "These look like they've seen some good meals," he remarked, holding it up like a trophy. Jack smiled, feeling a mix of nostalgia and sadness wash over him. Memories flooded back, his father's laughter, the smell of fresh coffee and the warmth of the bustling diner. But then he noticed something tucked in the corner of the box. It was a worn leather journal, its cover cracked with age. "What's this?" Jack murmured, picking it up carefully. He opened it slowly, revealing yellowed pages filled with his father's neat handwriting. As he scanned the words, his heart began to race. The journal contained notes about recipes, but it also spoke of dreams, struggles, and secrets that Jack had never known. "Jack!" Tom's voice broke through his thoughts, concern lacing his tone. "You okay?" Jack looked up, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I didn't realize. There was so much more to my dad than I thought. He had dreams for this place that went beyond just cooking. He wanted to create something lasting." Lily climbed onto a nearby box, her face serious for such a little girl. "Did he find it?" she asked quietly, her innocence shining through. Jack swallowed hard, the weight of the journal heavy in his hands. "I think he tried, but sometimes things don't go as planned." Tom placed a comforting hand on Jack's shoulder. "You're not him, Jack. You have a chance to write your own story now." As Jack absorbed Tom's words, he felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. The diner could be more than just a place to eat. It could be a legacy, a place of connection and community. With renewed determination, Jack clutched the journal tighter. "We're going to make this place legendary again," he vowed, glancing at Tom and Lily, who both nodded in agreement, their faces filled with resolve. And in that moment, surrounded by the ghosts of the past and the promise of the future, Jack knew they were on the brink of something great, a journey that could change not only their lives, but the very fabric of the diner itself. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue across Miller's Diner, now bustling with patrons who had come to appreciate the unique dishes crafted by Jack and Tom. The familiar aroma of simmering sauces and baked bread wafted through the air, mingling with laughter and the clinking of cutlery. Yet beneath the surface of this newfound success, tension simmered between Jack and Tom, threatening to unravel the fragile partnership they had built. Jack stood behind the counter, his brow furrowed as he reviewed the day's receipts. The numbers were promising, but his mind was clouded. With ambition, he envisioned expanding the menu, introducing more elaborate dishes, and attracting even more customers. As he scribbled ideas on a notepad, he noticed Tom leaning against the kitchen doorframe, casually munching on a slice of leftover pie. "Hey, Tom," Jack called, his tone a mix of excitement and urgency. "What do you think about starting a weekend brunch special? Something that really wows the crowd?" Tom looked up, his mouth still full. "Sounds great, but we should keep it simple. You know how we've been cooking. Let's not overdo it." Jack's frustration flared. "Simple? Tom, we're not just trying to survive here. We're trying to thrive. If we want to make this place great, we need to push ourselves." Tom shrugged, his demeanor unbothered. "I get that, but I don't want us to lose what made people love this place in the first place. It's about the food, not the flash." Jack slammed the notepad onto the counter. "It's not just about the food anymore. We need to be strategic. If we don't grow, we'll just be back where we started, struggling to keep the lights on." The tension in the air thickened as Tom's expression hardened. "You think I don't want this to succeed?" I'm doing everything I can, Jack, but we can't sacrifice who we are in the process. Jack's voice lowered, and he forced himself to take a breath. I'm not asking you to change who you are. I just want us to work together to make this better. The conversation ended abruptly as Lily bounded into the diner, her golden curls bouncing with each step. Daddy, can I help you with the cooking today? She chirped, her eyes bright with hope. Tom's expression softened immediately. Of course, sweetheart. You can help by washing the vegetables. Lily nodded enthusiastically and made her way to the sink, her tiny hands moving with a determination that belied her age. Jack watched her for a moment, a fleeting smile crossing his face despite the lingering tensions with Tom. But as the day wore on, Jack couldn't shake the feeling of unease. He felt a growing chasm between him and Tom, a rift that seemed to widen with each passing day. It was as if their visions for the diner were on divergent paths, and he was unsure how to bridge the gap. Later that evening, as the last of the customers filed out and the din of conversation faded, Lily began to ask questions that piqued Jack's interest. Daddy, who used to own this place before you? Tom's brow furrowed at her question, but before he could respond, Jack interjected. That's an interesting story, Lily. This diner has been in my family for a long time. My father ran it before me. But was he friends with the other owners? Lily pressed, her curiosity evident. Other owners? Tom echoed, his voice low and contemplative. What do you mean, sweetheart? There's a man who used to come to the diner before you and Daddy worked here, she explained, her eyes wide. He had a funny name. I think it started with R. Jack exchanged a glance with Tom, sensing the tension rising again. You mean Mr. Reynolds? He was the owner before my dad took over. But that was a long time ago, Lily. Why are you curious about him? Lily shrugged, her innocence shining through. I heard some ladies talking about him at the park. They said he had secrets. Maybe he left something behind. Tom chuckled softly, but Jack felt a pang of unease. Secrets? He mused, leaning against the counter. What kind of secrets? I don't know, Lily admitted, her brow furrowing in concentration. But I think he used to hide things. Maybe he left something in the diner. As the conversation drifted into a light-hearted banter, Jack found himself distracted by the idea. What if there were hidden treasures in the diner? Old recipes? Family heirlooms? Perhaps something that could help restore the diner to its former glory. But beneath his curiosity lay a deeper fear. If they followed this lead, it could take them away from the work they were doing now, and he couldn't afford to lose momentum. He glanced at Tom, who seemed lost in thought, his expression unreadable. The next day, Jack and Tom faced each other in the kitchen, the air thick with unresolved tension. Jack had been restless all night, his mind racing with ideas and plans. He needed to address the growing rift directly. Tom, Jack began, his tone firm but measured, we need to talk about how we're running this place. I can't ignore the fact that we're not on the same page. Tom folded his arms, his gaze unwavering. I thought we were doing fine. The customers are happy, aren't they? They are, Jack admitted, but we're not just about making them happy. We need to secure our future. I want to expand the menu, try new things, and really invest in this diner. We can't stay stagnant. And I don't want to lose who we are in the process, Tom shot back, frustration evident in his voice. You're treating this like a business, Jack. I'm trying to build a home here for Lily and me. Jack's voice rose, fueled by a mix of anger and desperation. This is a business, and you need to understand that if we don't take risks, we'll be back on the street, and I can't let that happen to you or Lily. You deserve better. Tom's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, the kitchen was silent, the tension palpable. If you think that's all this is about for me, you're wrong. I'm not just looking for a paycheck. I'm looking for a place where we belong. Jack felt a wave of guilt wash over him. I know that, Tom, but if you keep resisting every idea I have, we're going to fall apart. We can't keep going like this. Tom stepped back, shaking his head. Maybe you should think about what you really want out of all of this. If it's just profit, then maybe I shouldn't be here. Don't say that, Jack urged, desperation creeping into his voice. You and Lily are part of this place now. You've brought life back to it. I don't want to lose that. Tom's expression softened slightly, but the hurt was still evident. Then start treating us with respect. We're not just your employees. We're your family now." Jack opened his mouth to respond, but the words caught in his throat. The truth was, he didn't know how to balance his ambition with the familial bond they had forged. The idea of losing Tom and Lily felt like losing the only thing that made the diner meaningful again. As silence fell between them, the weight of their disagreement hung heavy in the air. Jack felt a cold knot forming in his stomach, knowing that if things didn't change, he might be faced with a choice he wasn't ready to make. "Maybe you're right," Jack finally murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "I just don't want to fail again, Tom." Tom's gaze softened, revealing a hint of understanding. "We won't fail if we work together, but we need to be on the same page. You need to trust me, just as I trust you." Jack nodded slowly, the tension easing ever so slightly. "Okay, let's try to find a balance. We can brainstorm ideas together, right?" "Right," Tom agreed, the corners of his mouth lifting in a tentative smile. But as they began to talk about potential brunch ideas, the conversation felt fragile, as if the slightest disagreement could fracture their tentative truce. In the back of his mind, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they were teetering on the edge of something much larger than just their partnership. As the day drew to a close, Jack found himself alone in the diner, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound breaking the silence. He cleaned the counters, his mind racing with thoughts of the past and the future. He glanced at the door leading to the basement, a lingering curiosity nagging at him. What if there were hidden secrets down there, tied to the diner's history? What if they could uncover something that would not only help them financially, but also bring them closer together? But as he stood there, staring into the darkened depths of the basement, Jack felt a chill run down his spine. The thought of digging up the past was daunting, and he wasn't sure if he was ready to confront whatever lay hidden below. As he turned off the lights and locked the diner for the night, he couldn't shake the feeling that the emerging rift between him and Tom would soon lead to a confrontation that would change everything. In the quiet darkness, Jack felt a sense of foreboding settle over him, a premonition that their journey was only just beginning, and the secrets of the diner were waiting to be revealed. Jack Miller stood at the entrance of Miller's Diner, a letter trembling in his hands as a cool breeze swept through the doorway. The envelope was unremarkable, yet the name scrawled on it, Mark Hastings, sent a jolt through his body. The name echoed in Jack's mind, a distant recollection of stories whispered by his father about the diner's history. He had never met Mark, but he knew the man was rumored to have insights about the diner that could either revive or ruin their fragile new beginning. "Jack, what's that?" Tom called out, appearing from the kitchen with a smudge of flour on his cheek. His eyes sparkled with curiosity, a contrast to the haggard lines that marked his face. Lily trailed behind him, her small hands clutching a ragged stuffed bunny that she had found in the diner's forgotten corners. Jack hesitated, the weight of the letter feeling heavier than its physical form. "It's just a letter," he replied, forcing a casual tone despite the fluttering in his stomach. "Just a letter? You look like you've seen a ghost." Tom stepped closer, his expression shifting from curiosity to concern. "You can't hide everything from me, man. What does it say?" "It's from someone named Mark Hastings," Jack said, his voice barely above a whisper. "He claims to have information about the diner's past." Tom's brow furrowed. "What kind of information?" "Not sure yet. He just wants to meet." Jack folded the letter and shoved it into his pocket, feeling an inexplicable mix of anticipation and dread. The diner's revival was still delicate, and the last thing he needed was another complication. "Let's go then," Tom said, his enthusiasm palpable. "If this Mark knows something that could help us, we need to hear it." Jack nodded, though uncertainty gnawed at him. "Yeah, but it's just a meeting. We don't know what he wants." "Every bit of information could be a lifeline, Jack," Tom urged, his voice earnest. "We can't afford to turn away help." "Not now," Lily, sensing the tension, piped up. "Can I come too? I want to meet the man who knows about our diner." Jack smiled at her eagerness, feeling a flicker of warmth amidst his anxiety. "Sure, Lily, you can come along. Just stay close." As they prepared for the meeting, Jack's mind raced with possibilities. What if this Mark Hastings held secrets that could unravel everything he thought he knew about the diner, about his father? He felt a surge of hope intertwined with fear. battling for dominance within him. Meanwhile, at a corner table in the diner, an elderly man watched them with keen eyes. Mr. Thompson had been a regular at Miller's since Jack was a child. His gray hair and wrinkled face held decades of stories, and today he seemed particularly animated. "Hey, Mr. Thompson," Lily called, her voice bright. "Do you know anything about our diner's past?" Mr. Thompson chuckled, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "Oh, my dear, this diner has a history that would make your head spin. Did you know it used to be the heart of the town? People came from miles around for the best pies and the warmest meals." "Really?" Lily leaned in closer, captivated. "What happened?" Jack watched the exchange, a mix of pride and nostalgia swelling in him. Mr. Thompson continued, "Well, it all started when your grandfather opened it up. The town was booming back then, but there were whispers of secrets buried beneath the floorboards, treasures that could save families during hard times." "Treasure?" Lily exclaimed, her eyes wide with imagination. "Like gold?" "Not exactly gold, but something even better," Mr. Thompson said, lowering his voice conspiratorially. "They say there's an old safe hidden somewhere in this diner, locked tight. If you can find it, you might just discover something that could change everything." Jack's heart raced. He had heard vague mentions of hidden things in the diner, but he had always dismissed them as fanciful tales. Now, as Mr. Thompson's words echoed in his mind, a new determination began to take shape. If there was indeed something hidden, it could be the key to saving their restaurant. "Do you think it's true?" he asked, interrupting their conversation. Mr. Thompson shrugged, a smile playing at the corners of his lips. "Legends have a way of being born from truth, Jack. Keep your eyes peeled. You never know what you might find." With the meeting looming ahead and the possibility of treasure lingering in the air, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that everything was coming together in ways he had not anticipated. Tom and Lily's arrival had breathed life back into the diner, and now the prospect of uncovering secrets could propel them into a new future. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the diner, Jack found himself pacing back and forth, anxiety gnawing at him. He glanced at the clock. Mark Hastings was due to arrive any minute. "Jack, you're overthinking it," Tom said, leaning against the counter, arms crossed. "Just treat this like any other conversation. You're a good businessman. You'll handle whatever comes your way." "Yeah, but what if he tells me something I don't want to hear?" Jack ran a hand through his hair, frustration bubbling to the surface. "What if he knows something about my father that I'm not ready to face?" "Then you'll face it together," Tom replied, his voice steady. "You've got me and Lily by your side. We're a team now." Just then the bell above the door jingled, and Jack's heart skipped a beat. Mark Hastings stepped inside, a tall man with a weathered face, exuding an aura of mystery. His eyes swept over the diner, a mix of nostalgia and something darker flickering in his gaze. "Mr. Miller," he said, extending a hand, "I appreciate you meeting with me." Jack shook his hand, feeling the weight of the moment settle around them like a heavy cloak. "Thank you for coming. I understand you have information about the diner." Mark nodded, his expression shifting to one of seriousness. "There are things you don't know. Things about your father's past and this diner that could change everything for you." Tom exchanged a nervous glance with Jack, but he stepped forward, ready to hear what Mark had to say. "We're all ears." As they seated themselves at one of the diner's tables, Jack felt the tension in the air, thick and charged. He knew that whatever Mark was about to reveal could alter the course of their lives forever. Jack sat across from the stranger in the dimly lit cafe, his heart racing with anticipation. The man, dressed in a well-worn jacket, pushed a piece of paper across the table, his eyes glinting with the weight of secrets. This diner was more than just a restaurant, Jack. Your father was involved in something much bigger than the townsfolk ever knew. Jack leaned in, his brow furrowing. "What do you mean? What was it about?" The stranger took a deep breath, glancing around as if to ensure no one was eavesdropping. "There were plans for the town, development schemes that would have changed everything. And your father, he was at the center of it." He tapped the paper again, emphasizing its importance. "But there's more. I have reason to believe that he stashed away money. Money meant for the diner and its future. If you find it, It could save Miller's diner. His words hung in the air, thick with possibility. Jack barely registered the noise around him. His mind was racing. A hidden stash of money? It felt like a lifeline thrown into his turbulent sea of despair. "Where do I start looking?" he asked, urgency creeping into his voice. The stranger hesitated, his gaze darting to the window. "Start in the basement. There are clues down there, things your father left behind. But be careful. Not everyone wants these secrets to come to light." Just then, the cafe door swung open with a loud creak, and in burst Tom, his face flushed with urgency. Jack's heart sank as he recognized the look of determination etched into his friend's features. Tom scanned the room until his eyes locked onto Jack's. "We need to talk now," he exclaimed, his voice steady yet urgent. Jack turned to the stranger, his expression conflicted. "Excuse me for a moment," he muttered before standing to meet Tom halfway across the room. "What's wrong?" Jack asked, concern lacing his tone. Tom took a deep breath, his hands trembling slightly. "It's Lily. She overheard something while we were at the diner, and we've made a decision about our future." Jack's stomach dropped. "What do you mean? Is she okay?" "She's fine, but—" Tom hesitated, glancing back at the stranger. "It's about us, about me. I need to tell you something. Something important." His voice dropped to a whisper. "I have a connection to your family, to your father." Jack stared at him, confusion clouding his mind. "What are you talking about?" Tom swallowed hard, his expression serious. "Before I lost everything, I worked with your father. I was part of that conspiracy you were just told about. I didn't know it was anything sinister at the time. I thought we were just helping the town grow." Jack's heart raced, a mixture of disbelief and anger bubbling to the surface. "You worked with my father? You knew him?" Tom nodded, his eyes filled with remorse. "I was young and naive. I didn't understand what was really going on. But when the plans fell through and everything went to hell, I lost my job, my home, and my connection to that life. Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Jack's voice was strained, a storm of emotions brewing within him. "You've been living in my diner, and you didn't think it was important to mention this?" "I was scared." Tom's voice rose, drawing the attention of other patrons. "I thought you might kick us out if you found out. I wanted to prove I could help you, that I could change my life too." He paused, his gaze softening. "But now, knowing what I know about your father and the money, it feels wrong to keep it from you." Jack ran a hand through his hair, feeling overwhelmed. "This is a lot to process, Tom. You're telling me that the one person I thought I could trust, the one person helping me revive this diner, has ties to my family's past, a past that could destroy everything." Tom stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "I swear to you, Jack, I'm not the person I was back then. I've changed. I want to help you find that money. I want to make things right." The cafe was silent, the weight of Tom's admission settling heavily between them. Jack felt torn. He had fought so hard to keep his diner afloat, and now he was faced with the reality that Tom's past might be intertwined with his own family's secrets. "If what you're saying is true, we need to find the money, together," Jack finally said, his voice steadying. "But I need to know I can trust you completely." "I promise," Tom replied, sincerity flooding his tone. "Let's go back to the diner and figure this out. If your father hid money in the basement, we'll find it." As they turned to leave, Jack glanced back at the stranger, who had been watching the exchange with keen interest. "What about you?" Jack asked, feeling a sense of urgency. "Will you come with us?" The stranger shook his head slowly. "I've shared what I know. The rest is up to you. Just remember, not everyone will want you to find those secrets. Be careful." With that, he slipped out of the cafe, leaving behind an air of mystery. Jack and Tom hurried back to Miller's diner, the weight of their discoveries heavy on their shoulders. As they entered the diner, the familiar smell of grease and old wood hit them. It felt like home, yet it was a home filled with uncertainty. "Lily's in the back," Tom said, moving toward the kitchen. "I'll explain everything to her. She deserves to know." Jack nodded, taking a moment to collect his thoughts. He wandered over to the counter, the faded memories of bustling customers and laughter flooding back. It felt like a lifetime ago when the diner was full of life. Tom returned moments later, with Lily holding his hand. The little girl looked up at Jack, her wide eyes filled with curiosity. "What's happening, Mr. Miller?" she asked, her voice small. Jack knelt down to her level, forcing a smile. "We found out some things about the diner, Lily, about your dad and me, and we're going to work together to make it better. I promise." Lily's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Can I help?" "Of course you can," Tom said, his heart swelling with pride for his daughter. "We're a team, remember?" As they gathered around the kitchen table, Jack felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. Despite the challenges ahead, he knew they had each other. They were bound by their pasts, but also by a shared dream of a brighter future. Together, they would uncover the secrets hidden beneath the surface of Miller's Diner. Secrets that could either save them or tear them apart. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. They would face it together, and perhaps, just perhaps, the diner would rise again, stronger than before.